10 over-the-top VHS-era Asian movies from different genres. Hi, I'm Christian Aris, and thank you for watching Marvelous Videos. There was a time when American cinemagoers just couldn't get enough of Asian movies. It should not come as a surprise to you, then, when we tell you that celebrated directors, from Quentin Tarantino to the Wachowskis, have all drawn inspiration from different genres in the Asian industry. Following the popularity of the VHS era, there happened to be a significant boom there. After all, the seeds that were embedded back in the 70s led to a flourishing gamut in the industry, especially in the 80s, marking the decade as the golden era of Asian cinema. While some might address the flicks as cheesy, you just can't deny they were also extremely fun to watch. No wonder these movies managed to find such a strong audience in the US. In today's video, we're going to talk about 10 over-the-top VHS-era Asian movies spanning across different genres.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
In the Line of Duty, 1986. Michelle Yip happens to be a dedicated police officer and a kung fu professional. Michael Wong from the Air Security Force is a garrulous, carefree guy majorly crushing over Michelle. Yamamoto, on the other hand, mostly keeps to himself and is about to leave the Tokyo Police Department to spend more time with his family. These three intersect when they thwart a hijacking on a plane flying from Tokyo to Hong Kong. The gangster on board, along with his to-be rescuer, die, taking off the brothers of the deceased. Soon, the three cops become deadly targets. David Chung's 1986 action drama flick, In the Line of Duty, features hard-hitting action scenes along with the right dose of dramatic and comedic moments. The movie also marks one of the best performances of Malaysian actress Michelle Yeoh. You can't disregard her no-nonsense cop role along with those brilliant fight scenes, every blow performed by Yeoh personally. In the Line of Duty unquestionably stands out for its persevering storytelling and, of course, ruthless display of martial arts. The massacre in the nightclub can very easily be called one of the dramatic highlights of the movie. So, if you happen to be in the mood for a hard-edged action flick, then look no further. Grab your pints of beer and simply enjoy. Cyber Ninja, 1988. In a futuristic version of medieval Japan, humans and cyborgs are at war. One of the cyber ninjas goes rogue to aid a royal family after their resolute princess gets captured. She will be the sacrifice required to invoke cyborg minions from a different dimension. The human army sends in a small group of soldiers, amongst whom is an unyielding young man seeking vengeance for the death of his brother at the hands of the cyborgs. After battling their way to the demon castle, it's discovered that the cyber ninja, Shiranui, is in reality the lost brother modified into a robot, and is now hell-bent on repossessing his human physique. Director and writer Keita Amamiya's 1988 Japanese science fiction action film, Cyber Ninja, is enjoyable, weird, and entertaining at an all-new level. Originally titled Mirai Ninja Keigumo Kinen Gaiden, the movie had an opening night at the Tokyo International Fantastic Film Festival. With a unique concept that has cyborgs and robots clad in samurai armor and fighting with swords, there's absolutely no reason for you not to be drawn towards this. The plot is tolerable. It might seem a little complex and baffling at times, but that's okay. It all makes sense eventually. But if you're pondering over what is really noteworthy about Cyber Ninja, then full credits to the action scenes, the design of the world created, and the astonishingly pleasant cast. Amamiya's film lives up to expectations. On display are cybernetic ninjas and gigantic robots that seem to appear out of nowhere. One may not know this, but despite being initially screened in Japan in 1988, Cyber Ninja was released on VHS way later in 1995. Watch out for the original Japanese soundtrack, the strong visuals, and the costumes and special effects that deserve a special commendation.
引いちゃいますって。
Violent Cop, 1989. Detective Azuma often resorts to brutal and unorthodox methods when it comes to confronting perpetrators. While investigating a series of drug-related slaughters, he comes to realize that his friend and colleague, Iwaki, is trafficking drugs. But after Iwaki dies and his sister is abducted by Yakuza gangsters, Azuma goes absolutely rogue, breaking every rule out there and responding to every situation with nothing but violence. He goes to great extents to get what he wants. What makes this 1989 flick noteworthy is Takeshi Kitano's directorial debut, along with creating his own impact on screen as an actor. Kitano delivers what might be his best performance, and trust us when we tell you that it is absolutely mind-blowing. There's hardly any director out there who is as proficient in blending nihilistic brutality, tragedy, and black comedy the way Kitano does. Due to the film's unconventional police idea, some might address Violent Cop as the Japanese version of Dirty Harry or Bad Lieutenant. And though it does bear certain resemblances to the former, there are differences. For example, when Clint Eastwood's Harry broke the rules to lay hands on a criminal, Kitano's Azuma seems more likely to seek vengeance, adding to the fact that he's psychotic too. In fact, Azuma happens to be way more dirty and ruthless. Kitano's unique stamina while showcasing violence is bound to make his viewers feel the pain. You may not know this, but the original script was a comedy. It was Kitano who rewrote the screenplay into a drama. Accompanied by Yasushi Sasakibara's amazing cinematography and splendid background score by Daisuke Kume, one really has to experience this cinematic bliss to understand the hype around it. Zoo, Warriors from the Magic Mountain, 1983. During the Tang Dynasty, military deserter Dik Ming Kei is being chased by vampires in the mountain of Zu. Luckily, he's saved by Master Ding Yan and eventually becomes a student. Later, when the duo gets bushwhacked by an evil being known as the Blood Devil, devil hunters Siu Yu and Yat Jan come to help them out. During the skirmish, Siu Yu is injured, leading to Master Ding taking him to the Celestial Fort. There, though, Ding ends up surrendering to the Dark Force, leaving it up to Dik Ming Kei and Yat Jan to vanquish the Blood Devil for good. Sui Hark's 1983 Hong Kong supernatural wuxia flick happens to be based on the Xianxia novel Legend of the Swordsman of the Mountains of Shu by Huanzhuo Zhu. If you're wondering what exclusive element Sui Hark brings to the table, we have plenty to highlight. From the impressive cast and non-stop action, especially the impeccable sword fights, to the laser-paced editing and optical effects battles, the movie happens to be a real feast for the eyes. Warriors from the Magic Mountain is also abundant with scenes where you might be scratching your head because you have no idea what's going on. But trust us when we say that you will be glued to the screen regardless. With so much vigor and an unparalleled visual flair, the director's creativity is highly commendable. The flick moves at an unbelievably fast pace in a running time of just 98 minutes, boasting a world full of imagination. The cinematography by Bill Wong and the fantastic musical score by Quan Xing Yao and Tong Xiu Lam contribute to its excellence. Hark's Zoo, Warriors from the Magic Mountain unquestionably happens to be an indispensable masterpiece of Hong Kong action at its best, and one truly has to see it to appreciate it completely. Legend of the Eight Samurai, 1983. Princess Shizu of the Satomi clan has become a fugitive after her family gets massacred by the supernatural descendants of the Hikita clan. She is currently on the run, being pursued by her enemies. Soon, she is found by the reckless young Shinbei before being rescued by Dosetsu and his companion Kano. He discloses to the princess the legend of a curse on her family and tells her about 8 magical crystal balls that identify 8 samurai who can overcome the curse. He and Kano happen to be 2 of the 8 samurai, so they need to find the remaining 6 to defeat the wicked queen Tamazusa, responsible for the death of Shizu's family. But Shinbei, after getting to know who the princess is, has plans of his own. This 1983 Japanese historical martial arts movie, directed and co-written by Kinji Fukasaku, is filled with elements of adventure, drama, and fantasy. The movie is very colorful, featuring some incredible special effects, such as an enormous centipede and an equally giant snake. Remember that scene where the giant centipede is tossed into the wires? You can't miss that particular shot. The story is loosely based on the 19th century Japanese novel Nanso Satomi Hakenden by Kyokite Bakken. For a flick that appears more like an idyllic family watch, there's a good amount of grisly visuals and some nudity. So, if you're planning to watch this with your kids, you may want to think again. Watch out for Sonny Chiba, who is brilliant in his role as always. Possessed 2, 1984. The plot revolves around Lucy, a bar waitress living with her boyfriend Tim. Eventually, she gives birth to a baby boy and names him Paul. After a span of 7 years, Tim decides to desert the family, never returning. Lucy, out of fury, kills Paul and commits suicide. 30 years after the incident, new residents have begun moving into the house. Not aware of the past tragedy, disturbing things begin to crop up to the new homeowners. With Possessed 2, director David Lai retains the recipe of successful Asian horror flicks. Full credits to the zippy pacing and the endless plot twists that effectively manage to keep the movie at a very interesting pitch. This 1984 horror sci-fi thriller can easily be considered one of the most ridiculous and entertaining possession flicks to have ever been made in Hong Kong. From melting corpses, popping veins and severed limbs, to extreme deaths and bodies flying through the air, you're bound to get a bit of every gory gratuity. A closer peek at the finale is bound to make one draw similarities to various movies like Seeding of a Ghost, The Exorcist, The Thing, The Entity, and The Heretics, amongst many more. It goes without saying that Possessed 2 happens to be far more inexplicable and enjoyable than its predecessor, also directed by Lai. What is particularly noteworthy is how every scene on display is done in an over-the-top fashion, making it inadvertently funny and effective. The fact that the characters from the first film return with a new storyline is something to look forward to as well. We highly recommend you give this ridiculously entertaining possession classic a shot. A Chinese Ghost Story, 1987. Ning Choi-san is a humble tax collector who goes to a small rural town to accumulate debts, but eventually fails and runs out of money. Left with no other choice, he takes shelter for the night in a desolate temple. Soon he meets Nip Siu Sin, a beautiful young maiden, and instantly falls for her. But it turns out that she is a ghost who is perpetually coerced to serve the sinister tree demoness. Ning is determined to liberate Nip from the evil spirit. With the help of Yin Chi Ka, a Taoist priest, he ventures into the mystic world to save the soul of Nip. Ching Siu Tung's 1987 Hong Kong romantic horror comedy is loosely based on the short story Strange Stories from a Chinese studio by Pu Song Ling. It goes without saying that this is the film which enhanced the stardom of Joey Wong and won the late Leslie Cheung immense popularity. It's a simple and moving love story, felt all the more genuine thanks to the brilliant acting talent of Cheung and the grace of Wong. No wonder the latter was even nominated for the Hong Kong Film Award for Best Actress. Coming back to the technicalities of the film, the squad of cinematographers, namely Poon Hong Song, Sonder Lee Kar Ko, Tom Lau Moon Tong, and Wong Wing Hong, deserve a special mention. The design of production by Zhang Wenxi unquestionably deserves peak commendation, and you can't miss out on the musical score by Romeo Diaz and James Wong, which is definitely one of the vital factors contributing to the film's success. Ranked at number 50 in the best 100 Chinese motion pictures presented at the 24th Hong Kong Film Awards, A Chinese Ghost Story has earned its cult classic status among fans born in the 80s. With creativity, action, monsters, martial arts, wittiness, spectacular visuals, and a stunning background score, this one is bound to stick with you. Evil Dead Trap, 1988. While presenting a late-night home video program, TV host Nami comes across a tape that looks like a real snuff film shot at a nearby factory. Taking her camera crew out to probe deeper, she finds the factory desolate. As they begin to look around the place, members of the crew start to get slayed, one after the other in a ghastly manner, until it's just Nami who's alive. She eventually discovers the killer as Hideki, a small fetus-like man adjoined to his fully developed but naive twin brother. Director Toshihiro Ikeda's 1988 Japanese horror flick inevitably happens to be a movie that will simply blow you away with the scenes that unfold right before your eyes. It wouldn't be wrong to address it as a cult film, given that it has earned a massive position amongst fans over the years. The narrative is very smart and well thought out, which means the execution happens to be more than perfect. You are going to love how the movie doesn't waste time. Instead, it introduces viewers to its characters and sets up the plot within the first 15 minutes. There are times where you may think you know what's going to happen next, only for you to be surprised by the plot flipping completely. Masaki Tamura's cinematography, along with Tomohiko Kira's musical score, deserve a thumbs up. To all the gore hounds and horror fans out there, don't miss Evil Dead Trap, which is unquestionably J-horror at its best. Devil Fetus, 1983. The story circles around a woman who becomes possessed and perishes after a demon is unleashed from an ancient vase that she'd bought. 12 years later, the demon seems to have been reawakened and soon begins to take possession of the people it encounters. This 1983 horror flick, directed by Lau Hong Chen, happens to be an unholy blend of several movies like Evil Dead, The Exorcist, The Amityville Horror, Poltergeist, and many more. With a movie like this, the plot seems to be the last thing that should concern you. Even the sets deserve a special commendation, particularly the cellar of the house. But it goes without saying that it's the gross-out content that inevitably sets the mood of Devil Fetus, boasting quite a few horrific scenes that are definitely not for the faint of heart. So, now that you know what you're dealing with, we highly recommend that you watch this film, if you're someone who loves nonsensical, gory horror. Tokyo, The Last Megalopolis, 1988. When Taira of Masakata was executed for his crimes against humanity thousands of years ago, his malicious soul simply refused to die with him. It became dormant, waiting for an opportunity to rise again. To disturb it would be to unleash unthinkable trepidations. On the other hand, ex-Imperial Army Lieutenant Yasunori Kato wishes to destroy the city of Tokyo by reviving the slumbering evil. So, now it's up to Keiko, the scion of Masakato, to seize the deranged Kato from releasing the spirit and unleashing an ancient curse upon the world. Director and producer Akio Jisoji's Tokyo: The Last Megalopolis happens to be the first cinematic edition of Hiroshi Arumata's award-winning historical fantasy novel, Taito Monogatari. With a budget of around 1 billion yen, or $10 million, this dark fantasy epic is one of the most extravagant live-action special effects films that was created during that era. The Last Megalopolis is also quite ardent in nature, given that it literally strives to adapt the first 4 books of a series within 135 minutes. There'll be times when you feel like the pace of the narrative is quite fast. Well, that is precisely because there is so much to cover. After all, one needs to be aware of the historical origin of every character, or how else are you supposed to connect, right? This genre bender of a film also boasts elements like horror, fantasy, science fiction, and historical fiction, which means one gets to relish in some amazing scares alongside whimsical fantasy, with the methodically created costumes and sets deserving a special mention. Shout out to Maso Nakabori for his impeccable work on this film's cinematography, something that is definitely bound to keep viewers thoroughly entertained. The musical score by composer Maki Ishii cannot be dismissed either, especially his heavy usage of classical music for those significant dramatic moments. Not many know this, but famed Swiss artist H.R. Geiger also contributed concept art to the project. He initially wanted to work on the set, however, his hectic timetable didn't allow him to do so. Having said that, it would be wise to treat The Last Megalopolis as a supplement to the original novel, but then again, it's totally your call. Why not give it a shot and see for yourself?
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.